Curious about what baits to throw tonight? Stick around. I've got some good information for you that hopefully can get you on some fish. It's Friday, time to start talking to you guys about baits again. Sorry I missed last weekend, was out on a family vacation, had a good time, actually caught up my first smallmouth that I've caught probably in 10 years or so super excited about that. But I didn't get nearly enough video to even put a good video together for you. I pretty much sucked while I was up there. Fishing was tough, a lot of recreational activity around me and stuff like that where we were at, but had a good time, did some tubing, all that good stuff. So anyways, great time. Hey, if you've not hit that subscribe button yet, make sure you hit it down below. And let's talk about baits you should throw this weekend. So first off, one thing that you really need to consider for this weekend is the thermocline. So if there's a thermocline on the lake that you're fishing, you need to be very aware of it. So if you're out there trying to fish deep, you definitely need to be aware of where that thermocline is, because if you're fishing anything deeper than that thermocline, you're not going to catch anything at all and you're going to waste the day out there. So just make sure that you're keeping that in mind. Make sure you're using your graphs to be able to find that. If you don't have graphs, maybe talk to the locals and just ask them where that thermocline is actually setting up at. That's going to tell you pretty much the deepest that you need to be fishing this time of year. So since we are in mid-August, it's stinking hot outside right now. We just got through a bunch of rain and now it's really, really hot. It feels like 105 out there. It's super hot. And it's a tough time to fish. It's really hard to get bites right during this time of season. We're getting ready to just turn the jets on though, and fishing's going to get really good. But for these next couple of weeks, it's going to be tough. So what I would suggest is I would go and find your major creeks or your major river arms. So like if you're in Hubbard, I would spend most of my time up in the river. You're probably going to at least be able to get some bites up there. Whereas if you go main lake, it's going to be a little bit tricky to find the bites. And we'll talk about that, where we can look at on main lake. But if you're just talking in general, if you just had all the options in the world, maybe your lake has river systems and things like that, I would get up in those river systems and get up in those creeks and try to fish around that. I think you're gonna have a lot more luck. So what would you throw if you were in those environments? Well, the first thing is, if it's morning, you guys know me, you gotta throw a frog, man. Or you can throw a whopper, plopper, or whatever, but I would definitely throw a frog. Definitely up there in the river. I love throwing this frog and skipping it underneath those trees and things like that, flipping it up in crazy stuff. You'd be amazed at where I get bites at with this thing. But definitely if it's morning or in the evening, I'm gonna try a little frog action and see if I can get any luck on that. Haven't had a lot of luck lately, but I never put the frog down because it's just a matter of time before it turns back on again. Next thing I would throw, if you want to stick with moving baits, maybe we get a little bit of wind this weekend. It looked like we're supposed to have 15 to 20 mile an hour wind. So maybe we get a little wind, or maybe there's some current. If it's just not completely dead still water, one thing that works up there as well is just throwing a little swim bait around. So you could either put this on a flashy swimmer if you want, or for me, I just have this on a weighted belly hook. You can see here, just a little 3-inch rage swimmer, and I just throw that around, and I can throw that pretty much because I don't even have the swimmer on here. I can throw that everywhere. So I can sit there and skip it up underneath the shade of those trees and things like that, and that's where you're going to get your bites, is really way back in there in the shade where the coolest water is, just outside of that current. So I would definitely throw that around, especially if you got that hydrilla and stuff in your rivers. If you have hydrilla or milfoil and stuff like that, that is a great bait. Even put that flashy swimmer on there, you can still run it through all that grass and have some success. Now, next thing would be definitely something that you can flip around. Now, you're going to say, why aren't you flipping a jig? Well, everybody else is flipping a jig. So myself, I'd probably still flip a jig every once in a while. But if I'm going out there to just catch fish, I think I'm going to stick with more of just a Texas rig style. You can either, just knock my rod over. You can either peg this, so you can put a peg right here at the top and then have it just peg down to whatever creature bait that you're using. I like using these brush hogs up there in our river. They seem to work really well. I know you're gonna think I'm in love with brush hogs. It's because I am, because they work. But this, I just put a Texas rig brush hog on there, and pretty much I won't peg it unless I have to. So I'll leave it unpegged, and as long as I'm not getting hung up in a bunch of stuff and they're actually biting it as I'm dragging it, through the water, then I'm not going to peg it. Now, if they're biting it every time, as soon as I flip it in there and as soon as it drops down, they're hitting it like on the fall, then I'm going to peg it, because then I can get that action a little better than I would if I didn't have that peg. But for the most part, I just put like a little 1/8 ounce or a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight on the top right here. You can see I leave it unpegged. I'm throwing this on 15 or 17 pound fluorocarbon with a 4/0 hook, and I just flip that around and have a lot of success doing that. So that's probably, if I was going up there, I would throw this more than anything else if I was up in the river, especially right now. All right, so one more thing I wanted to show you in regards to the river. And this is something that you probably aren't going to see a lot of people throwing up there. One, because they're scared they're going to get hung up. And two, because most people think I'm crazy for throwing up there. But I'm telling you, it catches fish, and it's kind of a money bait for me. So pull it over here. I actually knocked it off the chair just a second ago, but pull it over here for you. This is actually a 6 cents bait. It's a little tiny crankbait. See it right here. I believe it's called a crush something or other. I can't remember what it's called, but real good looking crankbait. This thing's tiny. It's not very big at all. You can see the lip on it is not very big. I can't get this camera. It's not very big at all. So what I have to do when I'm throwing these tiny little crankbaits is I actually switch over to a lot lighter setup. So you'll see here, this is actually my jerkbait rod. It's a 610 medium. So it has a lot of bend in it. It's very lightweight. It's perfect for jerkbaiting, but it's also perfect for these little bitty crankbaits. At least for me it is. And then I've got it on just a lot lighter reel, so everything's really light set up right here. And I'm telling them, you'll have good luck. You can run this crankbait right up against the wood, the branches, the laydowns, and things like that, and it'll bounce off of it. And when you get that deflection, that's usually when you're going to get your bites. So most people will sit there and they'll use this, and they'll say that it sucks because they're throwing it into the open spot where they're not going to get hung up. And then people like us, we're going to come right behind you with the same exact bait, and we're going to throw it right into the wood and bounce it off the wood, and then that's when we're going to get the bites. So remember that when you're throwing these, don't be scared to get hung up. You can always go there and just pull it off, but definitely throw this as deep in the cover as you possibly can. All right, so that covers us for the shallow fishing and for the river fishing. Now, you can always go up there and maybe throw a wacky worm as well. That would work, a Senko. So just play around with your plastics, but pretty much just Texas rig something, and you're going to get a bite. Stay with your watermelon, stay with your black and blues, and you should be in good shape. So let's say you're on Hubbard. You don't want to go to the river because everybody, their mom's going to be back there, and you maybe can't go back there because you don't know how to get back there. And if you don't know what I mean by Hubbard, that's a local lake that we fish here, Lake Ray Hubbard, and we've got a pretty decent river system that's back there, but it's tricky to get to. So let's say that you can't get back there, and you're going to have to stay more main lake. So number one thing for me, which you guys have heard me talk about for the life of this channel, the whole 7 months we've been alive, is a shaky head. So a shaky head was a game changer for me. It will always be a game changer for me, and it will always be something that I have tied on when I'm in the boat. So right here again, we've got a 1/4 ounce shaky head, owner shaky head with the brush hog on it. The brush hog's kind of falling down here. But basically a brush hog on it and you're good to go. And you throw that out there, you let it fall. And when it hits the ground, you're just going to pop it a couple times on slack line. So it's going to cause your bait to go up like this, and then it's going to fall down again. You let it hit bottom, pop it a couple times, and they're going to hit it on that fall. So you'll feel that tug on the fall. So really pay attention to that. That is going to be a key bait to be throwing, especially if you're throwing it main lake. I throw this one on a 7.3 medium heavy, and it works out really well for me. So definitely my go-to setup. Also, if you're out there fishing main lake, now that would be more like riprap, around docks and stuff like that, where you're going to be throwing that shaky head. You could also throw it out on humps too, definitely. But if I'm out fishing around the humps, and it's really the only two places I would be fishing if I was fishing main lake, is I would try to find the humps. I would fish around those, and then I would probably go into the marinas and the docks. But if I was fishing around the humps, you got to throw it. That's the Carolina rig. That's what we throw around here, and that's what catches fish. So still got my Carolina rig set on. I think I need to change my line, guys. It's been like 3 weeks in a row I've had the same setup and still catching fish, but just got the brush hog on there. Again, I'm in love with these brush hogs. They work really well for me, and they're really cheap. I just put a brush hog on there. This one I've got a little blue, and it just works well for me. Caught a lot of good fish on the Carolina rig for a long time, and if I'm having to fish deep, this is going to be what I'm putting my hand 9 times out of 10. You can always throw the football head jig and things like that as well, so don't discard that. But if it's me, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to throw a Carolina rig either with the brush hog, or I'm going to throw a big old fat worm on there. So 2 more things I want to talk to you about, I think, and then we're done. So the next thing is, and it kills me, it really does, it hurts me deep inside, It almost feels like I need to take my man card away from me, but spinning rod. Guys, fishing's tough right now. It's not easy. It's hard to get a bite. And sometimes when it gets in that time of year, it's like right now, and then also that kind of wintertime phase. Right now is a really hard time to catch fish. And if you really want to get bites, you don't want to get skunked, you got to put your man card away and you got to pull out the old fancy dancy Ned rig and give it a whirl. Just throw it around. This was kind of jacked up from being in the boat so long, but you basically just throw it out there, let it sit, maybe shake it a little bit, drag it, shake it a little bit, and drag it. And be very, very slow and methodical with it. You're going to get bites. If you're not getting bites out there, just take your man card, set it on the deck of the boat, go back, grab your spinning rod here, throw you on a Ned rig, and put you on something Z-Man so it floats up nice to the top. You're going to get a bite. I don't know if you're going to get a giant bite, but you're going to get a bite. All right. And then I think I had one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, and that would be if you're out there fishing, and we talked about, you fish around the humps. Right? If we're fishing main lake, we're going to fish around the humps, and then we're also going to go get in around the marinas. Now, you can throw that flashy swimmer that we talked about. That works around those marinas as well. The shaky head's going to work around the marinas. The Ned rig's going to be deadly around those marinas. And one other thing that is really, really good that I don't think a lot of people throw is the Nico rig or the Neko rig, whatever you want to call it, N-E-K-O. But you throw this, and this really has helped me out a lot, especially when fishing gets really tough. I don't like throwing it, right? I don't like throwing this really, really slow stuff, but put this on a spinning rod or put it on a bait caster. That'll work as well. And what you do basically is I've just got a shaky head worm right here. You can see it. And what I've done is I put a nail weight right on the top of it. So you can see here, I've got a nail weight. I stuck that nail weight straight down through the top of it and got it centered in that worm. So I can just see the top of it. So right here, I can just see the top of that nail weight. And then I got me my wacky tool out, and I put a little rubber, just a little rubber thing right there on the side of it to hold my hook in and to kind of help me out with the bait, keeping the bait good. And then what I did with my hook is I held my worm up like this, right? So you're going to hold it up like this. And you can use a drop shot hook, or you can use these hooks. These hooks are actually made for this. But what you'll do is you're going to slide. See if I can show this to you guys. Take this back out. So I've got my worm right here. I'm going to take my hook, and I'm going to make sure that this is the way I'd want to be dragging it, right? Because we're going to pull it like a shaky head. So then we're going to just bring it in here, about a quarter way, halfway through the worm, and then we're just going to pull it right back out. Just about like that. So when I'm pulling this, it's going to set up just like this. This tail is going to be flopping around up here. And I've got my little wacky tool right here that I used. I put that further down towards the head, so that way I have more play on the back end. And you can just play around with it and see what's working best for you. But this right here, this can be a really deadly tool as well, and not a ton of people throw it out there. So it's definitely something you might want to try. You can try it with all kinds of different worms. This is just a 6-cent shaky head worm. But you can try that, and you can try it with just about anything that you want. But try it that way. And instead of throwing your shaky head, go out and throw this around that riprap as well, and it won't get hung up as much. So you'll be surprised. But still, a shaky head's still a good thing to go. Hey guys, that wraps us up for this evening. Hope you guys enjoy the fishing this weekend. And most of all, I hope you catch your PB. Take care.